Why do so many of us feel like we've lost our sense of wonder? Why does life feel heavier, faster, more overwhelming than it used to? And what happens to our stories, our marriages, our families, our work when wonder starts to fade? We're starting this podcast because everywhere we look, people are exhausted. People are anxious. People are hungry for clarity and for meaning. And underneath all of that is a deeper truth. We're living in a world that rewards knowing, but rarely invites us to wonder. Yet wonder is where wisdom begins. Wonder wakes us up. It opens the heart. It helps us see clearly again. So today, in this very first episode, we want to share a bit of our story, a bit of your story, and why we believe the path back to peace, purpose, and presence starts with one simple word: wow. Welcome to the wisdomHow podcast. All right, everyone, welcome. First episode of the wisdomHow podcast. Somehow I have roped in my wife, my business partner, my biggest cheerleader, my best friend into this process. Kate, I'm pumped to be doing this podcast again.
I'm so excited.
We debated about what to call this podcast.
We may still be debating about what we're going to call this podcast.
Somehow I have obviously won this argument, the wisdom of wow. And so I know you have your own entire body of work. Mm-hmm. I have my own entire body of work. We have a collective body of work through our company, Istoria. And so I've been the wonder guy for a long time. And yet, despite me being the person who's always writing about wonder and speaking about wonder on stages around the world and talking about wonder everywhere I go across social media, you are part of the foundation of my experience with wonder because of our relationship and this quite literal wonder-filled life that we've been pursuing together over the past 25 years. Yeah, is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. You're the wonder guy, which by default I kind of get roped into a little bit on the wonder side, but my perspective on wonder is like the rebellious angle. How do we show up counterculturally? How do we show up in a way where we're breathing new life into things? So we both bring something unique to the table, but yeah, we've been running towards the same thing for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully my take on wonder has inspired you, and yet I can also acknowledge that your body of work has inspired me. And so just to give everyone a little bit of glimpse into that before we jumped into some of our story, because we want everyone to get to know both of us a little bit more. Your body of work over this last chapter has been all about two things: what poetry actually is and the role that poets play in the world, which is that rebellious nature that you're talking about. That's crept its way into my life. Mm-hmm. I have lived a very rebellious life, certainly since meeting you. You're going to find that out.
Being a magician, for sure.
well, when people hear the story of how we met, some parts of that story, you were quite the rebel back in the day, and yet you still are. It's just you're rebelling against different things, I think, than you were before. Yeah. But we are raising our kids to be little rebels,
Buckle in, everybody.
Speak.
Here it comes.
And so what is poetry to you, and what is the poet's rebellion?
Yeah. So I am a firm believer that everyone has the capacity to be a poet. Now, poetry has sort of taken on, the word poetry kind of has this weird connotation. Everyone's like, I don't write like that. I don't speak.
Words that rhyme.
I am not Dr. Seuss. Like that. And that's not what I'm saying. So William Wordsworth described poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, which when you take that way of looking at it, that lens, I think that's when you really can go, oh yeah, I do have something that is constantly pouring out of me. It's a thing I can't not do. And I think over the last decade, which is this season of work for me is probably the last decade, it's me kind of going, okay, what does it look like to harness that? How do we help invite other people into that? Yeah. And it's an awakening of wonder inside of them. It's an awakening of the wow piece of, wow, I really do have something. I really do have something I have to say, something I want to do, an impact I want to make. And when I do that work, it bleeds into it probably actually starts in our family. Yeah. When you're raising 3 kids and trying to help them understand that they are an integral piece of the future. Yeah. And how do we help them not just kind of get in their chair, get on the bus and just go their merry way? How do we help them be counterculture thinkers? How do we help them step into their own rebellion of sorts? I wrote recently that we're not just deciding on one big rebellion. It is so many tiny little rebellions that inform the direction that we're going.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. That obviously was some of the inspiration behind the Poetics, this community that we co-lead along with some other people on our team. And when I think about the concept of the wisdom of wow, I think when you look at someone who is pursuing wisdom, who is living out wisdom, wisdom is on display in the story that you see them living, even from afar or close up. It feels like poetry. And it doesn't mean they're standing on stage and doing spoken word into microphones. It doesn't mean they're writing poetry books, but there's something poetic about the wise life. And I think that's what this podcast is all about. It's like, how do we take the wisdom of wow and use it as this lens or filter to explore everything from current challenges of our day, things that we're bumping into in our story, big questions about what life is all about. I think that's what this podcast is really all about.
Yeah, and I think you would actually agree with the idea that real poets, is why we created the Poetics, is an understanding of what was, what is, and what's coming. Yeah. And having such a clear vision on what those things are and how they've all informed each of the different spaces that you found yourself. It's why we created the Poetics the way that we did. It's just this bigger understanding of it's more than just your business, or it's more than just this side of your life. It's everything is working as one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Speaking of what was and what is to come, before we get too deep into the concept of wisdom of wow and what you all can expect on this podcast, I want to talk a little bit about how we met and some of our early impressions of each other, because you were quite rebellious. And I was the safe little good boy that grew up listening to mom and dad, doing what I was told, following the rules.
Cool. So I was not that person. That's great. That's great.
But I want people to hear a little bit of some of our backstories, because I know there's people who have been following you for years. They don't really know me. There's people who have been following me for years. They haven't gotten a full glimpse into you. And this podcast is us. And so let's get into some of the story of us, which we don't talk about too often.
Where do we start? What are we going to talk about?
Where do you want to begin?
I mean, we could start at the very beginning if you'd like.
So a little bit of backstory. You grew up
I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, born and raised. My parents still live there. My youngest sister still lives there. You were born and raised
in Southeast Tennessee, in the middle of nowhere, tiny little town. People joke around about my town only had one stoplight. My town had no stoplights, just a couple of stop signs.
I was going to say, I think I remember when they put in their first stoplight, but that's beside the point.
Yes.
But I grew up in Minneapolis, and I was actually attending a church that you landed at somehow.
I fell out of the sky.
Thing. He just fell
went
out
through
of the
a hole in the ceiling, and there I was. And I got up and dusted myself off.
He was
a light shone down from heaven on me, and her eyes looked up. And we fell in love.
That's not anywhere close to what it was like. No, funny, I had gone to this youth group. So I was a junior in high school. So we are throwing way back. This was in 2001.
Yeah, high school for you is 30-something years ago, right?
It was so long ago. I don't want to talk about it. No, this was early 2001 when we met. And it was actually in May of 2001. I was a junior in high school, getting ready to go in my senior year. And
so I just want to add the detail that I had already graduated from high school, but I was younger than you.
Shut up. So that was the appeal, right? You came in and I was like, there's a new person here and he's cute. And everyone was like, oh, well, he already graduated. And I was like, sign me up.
But did you know I was actually younger than you when you found out that I had already graduated?
I also didn't know what you did for a living, which I would find out a month later.
What I did for a living.
I was already hooked.
At the age of 17, you were talking about what I did for a living.
Well, because, so full disclosure, meet you. I'm looking at him across the room. I'm like, gosh, he's so cute. He goes and church, it's a Wednesday night youth group. And so he is going in to sit down, and he's kind of across the way from me. And I kind of keep leaning back in my chair, looking, trying to get the attention of the guy sitting next to you, because I knew it, Mark. And just at the right time, I leaned back and made a gesture that caught his attention.
That some people might consider obscene or offensive. Yes.
It was not directed at you. It wasn't directed. It was actually directed at the guy sitting next to you, because he was not giving me 2 seconds to tap him on the shoulder. But he happened to see my obscene gesture, and you were like,
yeah, I literally turned to Mark and I was like, who is that girl? Now, to be completely transparent, I don't know how this makes you feel, to be honest, but it's the honest truth of the story. In that moment, I felt conflicted. I was like, who is that girl? Because I'm intrigued. There's something like bad about her, but simultaneously like different that I'm attracted to. It was kind of messy, to be honest. And here I was, this 17-year-old kid who just moved away from my hometown. I had already graduated high school early by doing like hotel school, as my parents called it.
School.
Got some, I don't know how they got me a diploma, some kind of GED thing.
I don't know. You were in
But I was already touring full time around the world, performing magic shows. And so I find myself in Minnesota, the family that I was staying with, because I was still a minor. So I couldn't even like get my own place, right? But the family, I was living in their basement in this extra sort of in-law suite. And they invited me to church. They're like, hey, do you want to come to church? You can go to the youth group. I was like, well, which group do I go to? Because they had these different age brackets. Yeah. And they were like, well, you're kind of high school aged, even though you've already graduated. So let's just go to the high school group so that you can meet some other like kids your age. And then I meet you. And so I'm trying to make sense of the world and understand life. And like my identity was on shaky ground because I was out in a new city, a new place, away from my parents. And even though I was very well traveled by that age, that was a different experience. And so to come in contact with someone that, even now as I'm processing it, I think it was a sense of like, oh, even though I can't articulate it, it's not that you have different rules. You don't really care about the rules.
No,
as much.
Absolutely not. No.
And if you don't really care about the rules, that must mean that there's some confidence that you have about something.
Or insecurity.
Yeah. Well, I didn't perceive it as
confidence or insecurity. It could mask as either.
Yeah. But that rebellious spirit, I think there was something inside of me as what would hopefully turn into a visionary leader. I wasn't able to articulate it in that moment, but I was like, there's something in me that hasn't been awakened that is going to require some sort of rebellion that I haven't had the courage to follow yet. And I think there's something in that moment that allowed me to see that rebellious spirit inside of you to give me permission. Hey, you don't have to follow the rules.
Well, and then to continue on that, I think I continued to give you the rebellious spirit of, hey, I'm going to play coy a little bit. Also, before you leave, can I make sure I give you my number so that you can call me? Because we should hang out. AKA take me out, please. Duh. And I think I just gave you my number and was like, hey, just call me sometime.
And I didn't know what to do. I've never, quote unquote, taken a girl out. And this is like
before cell phones were in I had a pager, y'all. I had a pager and then quarters so I could use a payphone. That's how old I am. But you called me. You literally called me that night. Yeah. And I got home and, my parents' 40-foot cord from the kitchen landline that I like took into the laundry room because I didn't want anyone to hear me talking. And you were like, hey, do you want to get coffee? And I was like, yes, I do.
For the record,
and he hates coffee.
Hate coffee.
Hates coffee.
Hate coffee.
Can't sit in coffee shops. But you took me out, and I know that it sounds so cliche, but it was literally instant. I was like, that person right there is exactly what I've been looking for. Everything else is not measuring up. Everything else is not. Honestly, it was boring because it felt so typical. Hey, you date the head of the captain of the soccer team or the quarterback of the football team, and you're always trying to climb that stereotypical ladder of you got to keep reaching a little bit higher. And you showed up exactly as you were in that moment. And it was jarring in many ways. And I didn't realize any of that until many years later. But you
And then
quite
she
literally
dumped me 4 years later. That's
Oh, we are just going for it. Let me
we don't
reach
have
into
we
my
don't have
pocket.
time to get into that chapter of the story.
Great.
That was me like breaking through the awkward, like you're saying lots of nice, kind things about me.
course.
So let's just like progress
No,
it forward.
you were absolutely and again, it's going to sound really cliche. You were that countercultural thing.
Hmm.
You weren't, my parents for many years were like, okay, when do you date the doctor? When do you marry the lawyer?
Well, that'd be weird at 17.
It really, also if you're a doctor, Doogie Howser, great. No, there's a, you were so different and you were so clear on what you wanted. And I was going out with people who were not clear. They weren't even clear on what they wanted to do the next week. And you had this sense of purpose that was very enticing. And I don't think we're taught to think like that. I don't think we're taught to pursue that. We're told, hey, you graduate from high school, you go get into a great college, you get great grades, you get your degree, you enter the workforce, you get married, you have children, you die.
Yeah.
And you and I were, very quickly into our relationship, we're like, how do we change the world?
It's interesting that you use the word clarity because I don't know that that's how I felt at the time. I think what
Sure.
you're referencing is actually the subject of this podcast. It's the wisdom of wow. Like I didn't have the wisdom of years yet, and I certainly didn't feel wise, but there's a natural wisdom that's baked into wonder when you let it do its magical work. I think that's why Socrates says wisdom begins in wonder. And so maybe what you were sensing wasn't as much clarity, but a unwavering belief that anything really is possible. And so I didn't know what the 10-year life plan was. I just knew that more was possible and that I was willing to pursue it.
So I'm actually really curious, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm not sure what your answer is going to be. When you encountered someone like me,
Mm-hmm.
who had this rebellious spirit, who was clearly not playing by her own set of rules, how do you feel like that spoke into what you were pursuing? Or gave you a different perspective that helped that entire, or amplified or expanded, or maybe it didn't, maybe it shrunk it, maybe it put everything in a box. Like how was that enticing to you?
Well, I think there's a gap between the things that we say we believe and our willingness to do the stuff necessary, because it requires courage in order to follow through on what we say we believe, right? Sometimes people say, yeah, I believe this. And then when the temperature starts getting hot, they waver in those beliefs. And so I think the gap for me was, yeah, man, I believe anything's possible. Now it's why are you're different than all these other kids who are just living for the moment and don't care about doing anything meaningful with their lives quite yet. What is this thing inside of you that's different? I would say, well, I have this belief that anything's possible. So I have all these dreams. We often talk about the difference between dreaming and doing.
Right.
And so I had the dreaming part down, but you hadn't been around me long enough yet to recognize the gap between the dreaming and the doing. I was doing just enough to trick you into thinking that I was doing.
To just get to the surface. It's like you hit the
But there was,
foundational.
but there was a massive gap between the dreaming and the doing in that stage. And so I met you in the dreaming stage, which was probably compelling to you. But then your rebellious spirit gave me permission to take the risk of the doing part.
Which, when we talk about risk, our entire family motto is not without danger.
Yeah.
And
it sounds cooler than that. It's actually non sine periculo as our family motto for this chapter of our life.
So not without danger. And talk to me about how that focus for us as a collective family, so you and me and our kids, how does that also tap into wonder? Because I think for me at least, there's an easy disconnect between wonder and rebellion. Even though I know how they're connected. I think people hear wonder and they're like, oh, you're just supposed to feel big
Yeah.
and fluffy and all of these things. And rebellion is like hard and gritty. And how can those two things coexist
Yeah.
together?
It's a good question. Um, some of the language I think that has been helpful to others, this is not a surprise to you, this part, is the wow how language,
Yeah.
right? And when we first met, I thought, oh, there are wow people and how people in the world.
Mm.
And that's not necessarily completely untrue. I think human beings have a natural bent towards the wow or the how. But what I think now is that we're all born wow people. Over time, as the wonder in us starts to dim or as our wonder gets wounded, we step into more how driven seasons and chapters of our life. And I probably came along to you and I was in a wow chapter and you were in a how chapter. And yet there was some wow part of you, just enough that your wow met some of my unhealthy how and gave me permission to be more rebellious. So when you ask, like, where does that rebellion show up? Why is the family motto non sine periculo?
Versus like the wisdom of wow or
Yeah.
wonder, whatever.
We kind of use what I call unhealthy how as a medicator to stay safe.
Mm.
And how that shows up is howing the wow to death. And so it's like, well, how would we do that? Or how would that be possible? Or you can't just go and marry a magician and like travel around the world and do magic shows.
Fun fact, you can. You can just marry a magician.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. But wow, to truly let wow breathe feels disruptive. When you really leverage the wisdom of wow as a concept or as a filter or as a tool or as a process, it's many things because wisdom's hard to nail down like that. It feels rebellious to others. It feels oftentimes unsafe to others because we crave so much certainty. And so you and I have kind of gone through these different chapters of our life, our marriage, where we're on the wow how roller coaster ride and we find ourselves in the how seasons where wow feels too disruptive. Wow feels impossible. And so we're like, I just don't know how that would work. And so when I think about how did we get back some of that over the years, if we were to fast forward through some of our story, because I'm sure over the course of this season, there's going to be lots of opportunity for you guys to hear different chapters of our story. But when I think about like how our marriage led us back to rediscovering wonder, how our parenting led us to rediscover wonder, how our work kind of forced us to re-leverage wonder. That's what I think of is, gosh, every time we've done something meaningful, every single time we've kickstarted a new chapter of our life that is truly wow level and filled with real magic, it required a sense of rebellion. And that rebellious nature is associated with, I think, the wisdom of wow, because the wisdom of wow says, hey, I know this is how it seems at the surface, and I know this doesn't feel possible, and I know you don't have enough money, and it doesn't feel like you have enough time, and I know you don't feel like you've got what it takes. I know you don't think that you're enough, but what if? What if you are?
Yeah. I think that's the question is what if? So I like that.
Yeah. But as you guys listen into this, there's probably like, I mean, there's a lot of tension in this, and we certainly felt all that tension over the years. We could go through those moments, the breakups, the arguments, the conflict, early years of marriage. We'll get into all that stuff, I'm sure, in due time. But then having kids obviously was a start with wow moment for us that led us back to wonder. But like, if you guys are honest with yourselves and we're honest with you, there's a lot of tension with this topic. If you look around the world today, I mean, think about it. Most adults aren't happy. A lot of you feel completely disconnected right now. The world is noisier. It's faster. It's more anxious than ever. We see this showing up for our kids right now. There's a lot of studies that talk about how wonder starts to decline around the age of 11. Our middle kid is 10, right? We're fighting to protect it. Our oldest is 12. It's like, how do we keep his wonder intact?
Yeah.
Right? Adults experience emotions and feelings like awe maybe a few times a year. We're talking about like the trip to Disneyland or Disney World with your family. We're talking about that one night on family vacation at the cabin in the mountains where like the sunrise happened to put on this amazing display. And so we reserve awe and wonder as these like, oh yeah, we can't really choose those. We can't create those. We just have to live our lives and wait for them to interrupt us.
Right.
And so if wonder isn't an option, well, then we feel like we have to stick with the script that was written for us, or we have to just accept the hand that was dealt us. And the next thing you know, we're feeling burnout, we're feeling anxiety rise up, and all because curiosity and wonder started to decline.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, this is fun. When you do a podcast, you start thinking about things.
Of course.
I feel like all of the times that we had the most tension or the most frustration or friction is when we had started coasting.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're in the groove. We don't have to think about this a whole lot. We're just going to go. It's easy, easy peasy. We love that, right? We're all in pursuit of easy, simplicity,
For sure.
things to have no friction. And each time that you and I have found that, it actually created friction for us.
Sure.
Because we're going, this is boring.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you. I'm not going to speak for you on that. But for me, that kind of steady flow is boring. And so it's like you go, okay, what do we got to blow up? What do we got to change? Or how do we got to shift our perspective so that we can see this differently, so that we can make it better? So we're not just floating through all of this, and it feels like it just becomes monotonous and thoughtless because it just gets so easy.
Yeah. But here's the question. I don't think that everyone is convinced right now listening in that a mundane existence feels boring to them.
No, I'm sure.
Or that it actually is. And I would actually argue that it is. And here's why. I feel like everyone, and if you're listening in, this includes you, I think everyone, if you really try, can remember a time when your life felt more alive. Like our culture tricks us into grow up, obsess over the answers, go to school, get the degree, memorize the stuff.
It's check all the boxes.
Check all the boxes so you know what answers are going to be on the test. And yet we become adults, and then it's just that we're numb. We're numb to the fact that we're living a boring story. Or there's something deep inside of us that's whispering, going, hey, you know you're meant for more than this. You know more is possible for you, but you don't know how to find your way back to that. Or you just silence that whisper or that yell because it's like that doesn't feel safe because our brain is just trying to keep us safe and fear kicks in.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for what people don't realize is, I put out a book in April called The Poet's Rebellion, and I have been writing for 30 years. I've been writing just different things for the last 15 years.
Which means you started at the age of 5 in your diary. Now that you're 35.
Yes, now that I'm 35. I wish. I was always behind the scenes pushing that envelope, trying to expand, trying to create that, hey, we're starting to feel like this isn't alive anymore. We're starting to feel like this isn't, and I'm sure there were many ways that I did that in a way that was really hurtful, but it was always in the pursuit of we could reach a little bit further. We can expand a little bit more. We can bring more people into this.
Yep.
This way of seeing the world, this way of being.
Yep.
And it just, like, we have been doing that our entire marriage is this constant push and pull to try to make each other better.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here, if you're still with us, obviously you are if you're hearing my words right now. Here's what I want you to know. We are not perfect. I think that's pretty obvious to most people, but also we are not under the impression that we are perfect. No. And I wrestle with this all the time because at the risk of sounding arrogant, there are people both very close to us and from afar who are looking at the life we're living and they're going, gosh, like, I want that. I want that. And what they don't want is the stuff that they can't see. They don't want the late sleepless nights, the sacrifice that we make to have the life that we want. Yeah, the constant, like, do we risk it all? Do we risk our entire net worth to try to pursue something, make it possible for others? They don't want the health challenges and the aches and pains. Yeah. And also there are people out there who have far bigger challenges that they're navigating right now in their life. And I'm also not like let's all belittle everything as an excuse person, because some of you have very real challenges that are difficult to navigate. And like, I get it. And it's all so much more nuanced than it seems at the surface. Is it easy to be like, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps? Yes. It's easy to say that, but to someone who's growing up in systemic poverty, it's really hard to overcome that. And yet, also, I grew up in a family like very immersed in very real poverty in a very tiny town. And I was one of the few people in like this area that dreamed big dreams and actually had the audacity to go out and pursue them at
To
times.
move to a city like Nashville.
So look, there's this paradox, right? Of, is it hard? Yes. Is our life perfect? No. But are we living a pretty magical, wild level life? Yes. We've been
You only
married.
get one.
Yeah, we're defying a lot of odds. We have a successful business, despite the fact that the majority, that's not hyperbole, the majority of businesses fail. We're in a very healthy chapter of our marriage, not because our relationship is perfect, but because we're committed to each other and working through it all. So Kate and I have now been married for over 20 years. We have 3 kids. Our kids aren't perfect. We're not parenting experts.
No.
And yet we're constantly asked, hey, like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? And so I preface what we're about to say with all of that. We're not perfect and we don't know it all. But the thing that I feel like we are constantly in pursuit of is wisdom. And wisdom feels like this cheat code for life. Did you ever do the thing on the playground when you were a kid? It's just like, okay, 3 wishes. If you had 3
Probably.
wishes, what would your wishes
and
be?
you can't wish for
You
more wishes.
Can't wish for more
That is
wishes.
a rule. Robin Williams' genie said so.
Yes.
You cannot wish for more wishes.
Can't wish for more wishes. And I didn't know this when I was a kid on the playground, but what I would wish for now is I'm like, wisdom. They're like, what a weird thing to wish for. Why wouldn't you wish for $1 million? I'm like, well, if I had wisdom, wouldn't I know which path to pursue to get $1 million? I wish for like an amazing, healthy, fruitful marriage. It's like, or just wish for wisdom and you would know
You would
what you
find
need
it,
to know.
yeah.
Like wisdom is this incredible thing that is hard to nail down and define. And so when I started going, well, how do I get that?
Yeah.
How do I get that? I feel like that's the thing that we are learning how to leverage. And the reason I call it the wisdom of wow, multiple reasons, is everything from old sacred religious texts to ancient philosophers like Socrates says that wisdom begins in wonder. That sounds confusing to some people because, you know, there's even verses in the Bible that talked about how wisdom is like it begins in the fear of the Lord. And that sounds confusing. Like, okay, I'm supposed to fear this divine being and that makes me wise. What about the whole Socrates thing? Did they disagree with each other? And yet, no, when you look at these different religious practices, wisdom was associated with this sense of reverence and awe. It's just like, hey, get over yourself, humble yourself, and acknowledge that there is a source that knows something more than your blind spots allow you to see. And if you can just stop for a moment and find something that allows you to experience awe and sit in the wonder, there is wisdom there.
Yeah.
It's like the birthplace of wisdom is this awe and wonder that we're referencing.
Yeah. Because wisdom isn't information.
No.
It's not skills.
No.
It's not knowledge. It's not, hey, what's in my tool belt?
No.
It is a perspective.
Correct.
And we talk about this a lot, especially recently, the compounding perspective that we're trying to give our kids.
Yes.
We're trying to have for ourselves as business owners. And in our marriage, we're trying to find all of those things that help us grow and kind of figure out, okay, we're going to look at how that's working for this person.
Yep.
What are the pieces that I can take from that?
Yes.
That can make our life better or more efficient or calmer, you know, whatever it is that you're looking for. And it all exists. And it doesn't mean that I'm going, oh, the grass is greener over there.
Yep.
So I want their life.
Yeah.
It's what are the pieces that they understand that I now need to kind of absorb and understand.
Yeah, 100%. So I think as we try to wrap up this episode, this first episode, that's what we want you guys to know is like we are not the wisest people on the planet. We are not the authorities on wisdom. What we are saying is that the wisdom of wow is an incredible practice and lens to explore things. And I think the reason I know not everyone out there wants to start a podcast or write books or give speeches like we do or found a company. You may not be trying to become an entrepreneur, but whatever you are doing is going to require some wisdom. And if you learn to leverage the wisdom of wow as a lens or a practice, I think it's going to help you get just about anything that you want in life. Now, I will also tell you this from personal experience. As you pursue wisdom to try to get what you want, wisdom has a knack for changing what you want. what you think you want starts to morph and transform because you're like, oh, actually, now that I'm in the pursuit of wisdom, it gets a little scary.
Yeah.
But if you are the type of person who's been dreaming about writing books and starting a podcast, part of the thing that makes it scary is the thing that makes this scary. Like, we're going on camera right now going, let's talk about wisdom. And that's scary, which means you might hear us say some things that you disagree with. We are imperfect human beings that have our own blind spots. All we are doing is trying to say, hey, let's ask some big questions. Let's look at the stories we're living through the lens of wisdom. And if wisdom begins in wonder, then maybe we can start with wow. So if anything else, I think this podcast is here to help you wake back up to the power of your own story, to stir something inside of you that says, hey, more is possible. So I would encourage you guys, even now, like, think about that question. Like, what is the last time that you felt wonder, and what was different about that moment? Because wonder is the doorway to wisdom, and wisdom is what helps us live a very wow level life. And so our hope is that each week on this podcast, every single episode, that the conversations that you and I have, that we have with you, that it opens that sort of doorway for you just a little bit more each time. So we're really glad that you're here. We're looking forward to wondering together. I'm looking forward to wondering together with you.
I know.
But these are not us becoming the authoritative source of truth. This is about us asking big, deeper, more meaningful questions about life, about each other, for the sake of all of us growing just a little bit more wise so that we can live a wow level life.
I love that.
Anything you want to add before we close?
I think just as you take this all in, again, we are just as human as you are. And so everything that we're going to talk about is just things that we have lived, things we've had to learn the hard way. Some of it we've learned the easy way, but we will still continue to learn. That's the whole point, is we are constantly in pursuit of trying to expand that perception for ourselves, and want to invite you into expanding that perception for yourself. But it's going to be awesome if you allow it.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, that's it for this first episode. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. We come to you with so much humility and also gratitude that you are here. So because this is a new podcast, please, if you're enjoying this conversation, go ahead and subscribe, turn on notifications on whatever platform you're watching on. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe. Please leave a comment, send us an email. We're easy to figure out. It's just harris@istoria.com, kate@istoria.com. It's just istoria.com. That's our company. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're enjoying about this. We want to choose topics for this podcast that you want to hear us explore along with you. That's the beauty of the wisdom of wow, is it's not tied to a specific subject matter.
It's a big bucket.
It's a lens that we can explore any topic through. And so we want to leverage the wisdom of wow so all of us can live more wow level lives together. So we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to keeping in touch. Leave a comment, a rating, a review when you're listening. That'll be a huge help in getting this new podcast off the ground. All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Wisdom of Wow podcast. We'll talk to you again very soon.